Today, we are diving into that classic confusion point. What makes a fruit a fruit?
And why the kitchen seems determined to completely ignore the scientists.
Exactly. We're looking at a fundamental identity crisis that plays out every time you slice a zucchini or pay a tariff at the border.
That's right. We're examining this messy, fascinating triangle where plant biology, culinary tradition, and surprisingly aggressive tax law all collide.
So the conflict really comes from two competing languages.
It does. You have the strict, rigid vocabulary of botany on one side, and then the flexible, highly subjective language of the kitchen on the other.
And this isn't just botanical trivia. I mean, this is a small reality shift that has led to landmark Supreme Court decisions.
And fundamentally changed how we trade billions of dollars worth of produce.
So our mission today is to establish those two strict definitions, explore the most famous historical and legal cases where human custom overruled plant science, and explain exactly why this chaos continues.
Okay, so to start, we have to be absolutely clear about the scientific framework.
The ground rules.
The ground rules. In the unbending world of plant biology, the definition of a fruit is totally non-negotiable. It's based purely on function.
Okay.
A fruit is the mature, seed-bearing structure that develops specifically from the ovary of a flowering plant.
So it's the result of a plant reproducing. And the key component, the unbending rule, is that it must carry seeds.
Precisely. If it came from a flower and it contains seeds, it is a fruit. That's the line.
Full stop.
Full stop. Everything else,
Yeah.
roots, stalks, leaves, buds, that all falls into other categories, even if we call them vegetables.
Okay, so if that is the fixed, rigid definition for a fruit, then the culinary definition of a vegetable is its wild fluid opposite.
Completely. The kitchen doesn't care about ovaries or fertilization.
No, the culinary definition is defined almost entirely by its usage.
And its flavor profile.
Right. Specifically, its lack of overwhelming sweetness. If you're preparing it in a savory dish, if it's for a main course, or if it's the base of a salad.
That usage brands it a vegetable.
And that is the exact point of friction, isn't it?
It is. When you apply that savory utilitarian context to something that nature designed to carry seeds, the identity chaos begins immediately.
Which means we need to look at this huge roster of items that are botanically fruits, but were historically and critically legally treated as vegetables. Okay, so let's start with the undisputed champion of this confusion.
So one everyone is waiting for.
The tomato. Before it became a staple, especially when it was introduced to Europe, it was viewed with suspicion.
Right. And it was cooked, treated, and classified purely as a vegetable. The savory pot was its destiny.
And botanically.
Oh, botanically, the tomato is a quintessential fruit. A berry, in fact. By the 19th century, this was not a matter of scientific debate at all.
So the confusion was settled in the lab.
But then it exploded in the courtroom.
And this is where it gets really interesting, where the financial stakes come into play. We are talking about the year 1893.
And the landmark U.S. Supreme Court case of Nix v. Hedden.
This wasn't some philosophical debate, right?
No, not at all. This was a trade war. The Tariff Act of 1883 placed a duty, a tax, on imported vegetables.
But not on imported fruit.
But not on imported fruits. So a wholesale merchant, John Nix, was importing tons of tomatoes and arguing, hey, since these are botanically fruits, they should be exempt from the vegetable tariff.
So this ruling meant potentially millions of dollars in taxes.
A huge amount of money. The 9 justices of the Supreme Court had to decide. Should they follow the dictionary of the botanist or the dictionary of the consumer?
And they chose the consumer.
They did. Justice Horace Gray wrote the majority opinion, and he stated that in the common language of the people, tomatoes were used in the dinner.
In the dinner.
Served with fish or meat or in soups and salads, they were not served, in common parlance, as dessert.
So therefore,
the court mandated that the tomato must be classified as a vegetable for customs purposes.
But wait, if that definition was just for customs and tariff law, didn't that set a kind of dangerous precedent?
It's a very sharp question.
I mean, does the U.S. government still technically define a tomato as a vegetable for all legal purposes, or just when taxing imports?
The ruling was actually very narrow. It specifically addressed the application of that Tariff Act. However,
Precedent was set.
exactly, that legal precedent solidified the public's conviction and, more importantly, the entire commercial infrastructure's classification.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with tons of produce, the legal label becomes the practical label.
Even if science is screaming otherwise.
Even then.
Wow. That just drives home how much the savory kitchen dictates reality.
And we see this pattern again and again. Take the cucumber.
Mm-hmm.
We use it for cooling, crunchy, savory stuff. That usage makes it feel like a
Of
vegetable.
course, but if it comes from a flower and carries all those seeds.
It is botanically a fruit. Case closed.
And the same applies to that massive family of squashes.
Zucchini, pumpkins, butternut.
All of them. We see them as vegetables because they end up in stews, soups, or roasted next to meat.
But botanically, they're not just fruits. They're a specific kind of berry called a pepo. That's right, characterized by that thick, hard outer rind.
So every time I'm slicing a zucchini for a stir fry, I'm technically preparing a specific kind of berry. I have to admit, that changes my perspective a little.
It should. It's all about the reproductive structure. Now, let's move into some less common but equally confounding cases. The eggplant.
The king of savory Mediterranean cooking.
Yet the eggplant, or aubergine, is botanically classified as a berry, a type of fruit.
And its identity crisis is historical too, right?
It is. In the Middle Ages, there was significant controversy. Some cultures debated whether it was even safe to eat, associating its bitterness with potential harm,
But those who did eat it.
prepared it exclusively in savory, complex dishes, which cemented its identity as a vegetable, despite its internal structure.
Fascinating. And what about peppers? Both sweet bell peppers and the spicy chili peppers.
Whether they deliver that capsaicin heat or just simple sweetness, their role is purely culinary, a flavor additive, a savory base.
That utility makes them feel like vegetables.
But they are, unquestionably, fruits that develop from the plant's flower and are just loaded with seeds.
And finally, the avocado. We now know it's full of healthy fat, and people often call it a fruit now.
But historically, because of its texture and savory preparation, hello, guacamole, it was often classified as a vegetable in grocery stores.
And yet, botanically,
Unambiguously, a single-seeded berry.
a single-seeded berry. A fruit that just demands savory treatment.
Yeah, this list really drives home how much the savory kitchen dominates our perception.
But what about the real curveballs? Are there items that we treat like fruit that aren't even close, botanically?
Okay, now we reverse the lens.
Let's do it. Let's look at those non-fruits that got a sweet promotion.
This is where things get truly counterintuitive. We move from botanically true fruits being used as vegetables.
Two things that are structurally not fruits, being used only in sweet preparations.
Exactly. And this phenomenon really starts with a classic pie ingredient, especially in the US and Europe, rhubarb.
Of course. We bake it into sweet desserts, we treat it just like a tart cherry or a berry.
But if we actually look at the rhubarb plant, the edible part we eat is the fleshy, acidic leaf stalk, or petiole,
So it never develops from a flower.
and it carries no seeds.
Therefore, botanically, it is decisively not a fruit.
It's a vegetable, pure and simple.
Yet, because it was so widely used, cooked aggressively with sugar to make pies, crumbles, and jam, it gained a fruit identity in the consumer's mind.
And, mirroring the tomato's fate, the U.S. government intervened, again.
No way!
Yes, in 1947, a New York court, again dealing with customs and taxation, ruled that since rhubarb was predominantly sold and consumed as a fruit for dessert purposes.
It should be officially classified as a fruit for customs.
Precisely. It was all driven by its usage. The price and tariff implications of fruit versus vegetable meant that the custom of preparing it with sugar fundamentally redefined its legal status.
It's truly amazing how customs law just follows the consumer spoon, not the scientist's microscope.
It's commerce demanding a cultural definition to function. Now let's look quickly at fruits that are always used in a savory way, regardless of their sweet potential. The olive is a prime example.
Okay, so botanically it's a duke.
It's a drupe, which is a type of fruit with a fleshy exterior around a single hard pit.
So like a peach or a plum.
Correct. But culturally, the olive is almost never eaten sweet.
No, it's salted, fermented.
Right, in brine or pressed for oil.
Mm-hmm.
It takes on the role of a meze, a garnish, a savory ingredient in just about every historical cuisine. It is defined by the brine, not the seed, in our collective consciousness.
And one final example of this, okra or bamia.
Due to its sticky, fibrous, and clearly seeded structure, it is botanically a fruit capsule, to be specific.
Yet, from classical Ottoman cuisine to modern southern U.S. and African preparations?
It's consistently prepared as a savory vegetable dish, often simmered in stews or tomato sauce. The savory role dominates completely.
Okay, let's synthesize this. Let's put a bow on this whole idea. It's clear this confusion is persistent.
It's not going anywhere.
No. And it's not just a cute trivia fact. It speaks to how fundamentally humans categorize the world using functional rules over natural ones. We've seen three main forces driving this.
The first and most financially powerful is what we just discussed, tax and trade.
Right, the tomato in 1893 and rhubarb in 1947.
These rulings prove that customs and border classifications consistently override biology. If you tax vegetables higher than fruits, the trade industry will legally argue the culinary definition to save money.
And the courts will often side with common usage.
They do.
The second is simple taste perception. This is that deep-seated cognitive shortcut we all rely on.
Right. If it's sweet, we think dessert, therefore fruit.
And if it's savory, non-sweet, or acidic, it's destined for the main course, therefore vegetable.
It's the consumer's immediate, almost unconscious bias.
And the third factor.
Cooking technique. This relates directly to usage. If you put the item in a big soup pot, a frying pan, or roast it with oil.
We associate those methods with vegetable preparation.
And if you prepare it raw, use it for juice, or add sugar for preservation.
That suggests fruit. The tool you use dictates the identity far more powerfully than its botanical origin.
It really does.
So, what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive? It means the word vegetable is fundamentally a cultural and legal construct.
Applied primarily to biological fruits and occasionally to non-fruit plant parts like stalks.
It is a label of function, not of nature.
And this whole dichotomy is just beautifully summarized in an insight drawn from your sources. It's a Turkish saying that captures it perfectly. Meyve, bitkinin biyolojisi sebze insanın alışkanlığıdır.
That translation is incredibly powerful. Fruit is the biology of the plant. Vegetable is the habit of man.
Exactly. It's the human habit, our culinary traditions, our tax codes, our simple association with savory use, that ultimately determines the vegetable status, not the plant's true nature.
Which means being well informed on this topic requires understanding the context.
You need to know if you're reading a botanical index, preparing a dinner, or analyzing the legal history of the 1893 Supreme Court ruling.
It's about knowing which definition applies to the conversation you are having. So consider this as you move through your day, perhaps slicing up a cucumber berry for your savory salad. If commerce and law define the identity of something as basic as a tomato based on how we cook it, what other fundamental biological categories in our lives might actually be defined more by culture, human habit, and legal precedent than by pure objective nature? That's definitely something to chew on. We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.